Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. Hi, preschool peeps.
Hi, peeps.
Today, now that the school year has been a little bit underway for most people, we are going to be talking about goals.
Yay.
Yeah, because we really should be doing everything with different goals in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know that in some settings, you are handed a whole list of goals for young children's learning.
Yeah. And then, yeah.
Yeah, she's just like, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're handed...
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
But even when you're handed that list of goals or those standards or those state requirements, we have to personalize it for the children.
Yeah, because those goals are written not with the individual children in mind, right? So like, and it's kind of like, I don't know the right word, I guess a range.
It's generic.
Yes, thank you. There's my word. It's generic. Whereas
generic, yeah.
the specific kids in your class are not generic, so then once you've been in the school year for a couple of weeks now, maybe for, most of us, now you know your kids.
Right.
And you know what they need to work on.
Also, may I add, you should all have goals for yourself for this school year.
Thank you.
How are you going to grow and learn? What do you want to accomplish for yourself? Because really, I think that when we stop accomplishing things for ourselves is when we begin to become a little stale. So, I think we should always be functioning with goals in mind, not only for the children, but for ourselves.
Right. And those goals for yourself should be very individual. It shouldn't be like what everybody in the building is doing. It should be like, no, what do I want to accomplish? What do I want to work on? What do I want to build on? And not worry about what everybody else in the building's doing. Worry about what you want to be as a teacher this year, or an administrator, or as a parent, or whatever.
Or a human, or just a human being. Who do you want to be as a compassionate caregiver of young people? Who do you want to be?
Yeah.
And you're right. I think that that's sort of apart from what the goals might be based on your performance review or the any goal that has come from the top down. We have to also set our own. We have to have some internal intrinsic motivation for the work that we do, especially during these times.
Yeah.
So we should be setting our own goals. Our goals should also, though, our goals for us and for the children should match the mission and vision of where we work. Because if they don't, then there's a lot of disharmony.
Yeah. And that if you're really into your own goal and it really doesn't match where you're working, then that might not be the right setting for you. And that's okay. But you won't know that unless you're intentionally setting goals, like if you're just going there and working and then leaving, but without having any drive for yourself in mind, then the work doesn't become meaningful for you. But if you have this goal of whatever it might be, and it doesn't line up with the mission of your school, then that might not be the right setting for you. It also might really remind you that you are in the right place,
Right.
So, yeah.
So we're talking really about two different sets of goals, one for individual children and one set of goals for yourself. So I guess we should focus first on the goals that we have for children, the fact that you are handed these generic standards, and we have to attach them sort of to each child and their developmental level and their skill level. And folks, you can't do that without partnering with the families.
No. Yeah. We talk about that so often on this podcast.
And yet it's always a thing. I have to tell you.
Yeah.
Every time I do professional development sessions and I say to people anything about partnering with families, I really honestly get a lot of negative perceptions back. A lot of the families are going to lie. The families aren't going to do it. The families don't care. The families aren't listening. The families are folks.
I wish people.
Folks. Okay. First of all, it's your job to offer your hand in partnership. You can't force anybody to do it. And you've got to not take it personally. People have lives going on.
Yeah.
People might have a lot of things going on in their homes. And maybe they aren't paying full attention to what you're saying. Maybe they aren't showing as much interest as you would like back. but we don't know what's going on with them. So the whole
You
judgment
don't know
thing,
what's going on.
I'm going to tell you what, I'm a parent and I wouldn't want anyone to just pick a particular segment of my life and judge me by it.
Right. Well,
Either a time period
no
or
human
something I
being
did.
would.
No.
Parent or not parent, it doesn't
No.
matter. You know,
It
like
doesn't
nobody
matter.
wants to be judged like that.
And by the way, when parents and families, whoever the children's most important adults are at home, grandparents, whoever, when they perceive that they might be judged, they are not reaching back to you. You have to have an open and friendly way of starting to establish a relationship with people. And relationships are based on trust.
Right. And I feel like, you know how like there's that saying of like when the kids sense that you don't like them as a child and they're just not going to respond to you. Same thing for parents, everybody.
Yep.
If those parents start to sit there and be like, wow, she really doesn't like me, you think that they're going to respond to you?
Correct.
They're not. It's going to be a negative thing from the get-go, and you don't want that.
No,
why would you want it to be
absolutely
negative?
Don't want that.
Yeah.
So you get a lot more by partnering with families, a lot more information about the children, their culture, their background, their experiences, even their skills, because the truth is the studies show that emerging skills take place first at home. So when that family comes to you and says, I don't understand why you're telling me my child doesn't do this, my child does this at home, the response to that is great. Emerging skills come out first at home. Yes. And so what I need to do is try to encourage your child to do that when there are 15 to 20 other people in the room. Help me to do that. And we need to seek their help. We have to say to them, what do you think would make your child feel comfortable enough to do that in school? Yeah.
And imagine being a parent and hearing that, okay, termed in that way, instead of being like, okay, yeah, but they don't do it here. So they must not do it at all. You must be lying to me, kind of thing. And that's like, you've already shut it down. And instead, the way Cindy phrased it is like, no, I need to know how, if you're saying he's doing this at home, he won't do it in front of 10, 15 other children. What would make him comfortable? You know, what are you doing at home that he does it there? Maybe I could do that here.
You may be surprised at what you will learn when you ask families questions like that.
Yeah.
You may be surprised. I have asked that sort of question and had people say to me, you know, my child is also a little more hesitant when we're with a large group of our friends or family. Sometimes we've done this or that, but unless you open up that conversation in a way where you accept what the families say to you, just accept it. You don't know, you're not there. Unless you are in their homes with them, you do not know what happens. You do not know how they react. You do not know what goes on. And we have to partner with them. We have to look at these people and say, here's our generic goals. Here's where your child is and what I think we're going to work on. And what are your goals for your child? What would you like to see your child accomplish this year? I fully recognize that families may say things that are not developmentally appropriate. That parent of the 2.5 to 3-year-olds who says, I'd like my child to be reading this year, is not necessarily taking developmentally appropriate development
things
like into consideration, and they may not know. And what
but
we have
they
to
might
teach
not
them
know.
is,
you're the expert.
What is the actual level of development of children at this age? And even that we have to do in an encouraging way. Like I might say to a family, you know, and you can't just say it based on your experience. You have to have researched information in front of you. Charts or graphs of what children will learn when, and you have to share that with them and say, this is what the studies show about what the majority of children your child's age are able to practice and master. I understand that you want your child to read, and your child will read when developmentally ready. Your child might not be developmentally ready at this moment.
But here's what we're going to do.
Here's how we're going to lay that foundation.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying to them, nope, can't do that. What I'm saying to them is, at this developmental level, what we do to lay the foundation for future reading is this. Because when I say that, I've acknowledged the fact that these people want their child to read. And I can even say to them, you know, I also have a goal of children being ready to read. So here's what we do to get them ready. They may not be developmentally there this year. Most children are not. The studies show they're not. And that might occur next year or even the year after, because all learning is a process. So here's where we are in the process of learning to read and
Mhm.
what we're going to do to move your child forward, remembering that all new skills take a long time to practice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's ways to talk to people where we can say, what are your goals, and not feel like, they are so out of the loop that we can't even talk to them.
Right.
And I think a lot of times professionals feel threatened by it because we feel like, well, no, that child's not going to
No.
read this year and they're going to think I'm failing.
Yes. I think that's what comes to it. And you as a professional, you hear like, oh, this parent wants them to read. Like that's like never going to happen by the time they're 3. And then you just dismiss it. You don't even try, but you are doing things in your classroom that build these reading skills that will then lead them to be in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, able to read.
Right. And you know what? And P.S., can we please give the family some activities to do at home that are developmentally appropriate so that they're not sitting in front of workbooks trying to get them to read? Instead, we should teach them about things like we said in a prior episode, good read alouds. How do I promote literacy in my classroom? So here's what you can do at home. You can use environmental print at home to teach your child letters and things. Let's give them really good advice so that we're working as a team to get that child ready to read. And the parent doesn't feel unheard. Right. So you are, in fact, setting goals together, even if the goal is beyond the capacity of the child at this point.
Right. The goal is to get them to read.
Right.
And they will read.
Just not today or next week.
Yeah.
Maybe not this year.
But
we're going to lay a foundation for that. And when we say to families, sure, we're going to lay a foundation for that. But we have to be honest and say most children of this age are not reading yet. That happens a year or two from now, but we have to lay the foundation together. So here's what we'll do in the classroom.
Here's what we can do. Here's what you could do at home.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We have to educate them a little bit in those conversations.
Yeah.
We absolutely positively need to be saying to families, what are your goals for your child? Because when they feel like you're not teaching well, when they have goals you didn't know about and you're not reaching them and you're not explaining how you reach them. That's when they feel like you're not doing a good job. Yeah. So everybody, I think, needs to get past that whole, if I don't accomplish what the family says, they're going to see me as a failure, not if you address their goal properly.
Right.
And then there's the goals for you, for yourself. And we need to talk about those and how to make sure you are on a path of accomplishing those goals.
Yeah.
Those goals need to be SMART goals. Lots of people have heard that. But let's talk about it, right? Your goals have to be specific and measurable. It has to be something that's you can measure. You're going to do this specific thing, and here's how anyone would know it's accomplished. It's measurable. It needs to be something that's achievable, relevant and realistic. R can be used a lot of different ways in the acronym SMART.
Yeah.
It's an acronym, right?
Yeah.
And then time bound. And I have to tell you that I think time bound is the least done and the most important part of the acronym SMART.
I agree with that. I feel like if you don't set a time, then you have no motivation to achieve it, right? Because you'll be like, I'll just do that next year. It's cool. It's
all right. I'll get to it tomorrow.
Yeah. You just keep putting it off. And it's so important in goal setting to set that time. And if you don't meet it in that time, it's not that you failed. There's probably many things that you did along the way to get to that point. Maybe, it's kind of like a football game. It's like, you can't just throw and get a touchdown every time. It's like, no, like you get first down, second down, third down, fourth down, first down again. You know what I mean? You just keep going. It's like you're building, but within a certain amount of time, and it might take you years, but still.
I have a time-bound to-do list. So here's what happens. Like I assign certain tasks to different days so that I will hopefully get them accomplished. And sometimes things happen and I don't. So I take that little memo and I move it to the next day.
Yeah.
And I leave it as past due on the technology because that gives me anxiety when I have past due goals, which means I'm more likely to go ahead and work on it on that future date or even sooner, because that just gives me agita to know that I haven't met a deadline. You do need to make sure that they're time bound, but a realistic for time frame. So you might have a goal where you say, I am going to start to do read alouds the way that Cindy and Alison talked about in that read aloud episode of the podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start with, it has to be specific. I'm going to start with how I introduce books differently. I'm going to start introducing books according to what Cindy and Alison talked about in their podcast by 1 week from today.
Yeah.
And you've got to give it that date. And that's measurable because anybody in the space can see if you have changed
if you
it.
did it. Yeah. Yeah.
So please make sure when you're setting your own goals, when you're thinking, what do I want to accomplish this year as a teacher? You might have a goal, something like, I would like to be more patient with the children's challenging behavior. Be specific. What does that look like? I would like to be able to take a breath before I respond to the children's challenging behavior.
Yeah.
I would like to take a moment to think before I respond to the children's challenging behavior. And I'm going to start taking that breath and taking that moment by Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Because again, saying some big lofty thing like I'm going to be more patient with the children's challenging behavior is too big a thing.
It's also not really measurable. I feel like if it's that like simple of terms, like, oh, I'll just be more patient. And then you as a person are like, yeah, I was patient that one time, remember? And like, but by saying, yeah, like, I was patient, yeah, I worked to check it off. Like, no, it has to be very like, okay, no, I did take a breath before I responded to so-and-so when he was upset, like I did do that. So now I could check it off instead of this, what is that? Subjective, like, okay, is that the right word? Subjective instead of objective? Subjectively, I'm like saying, yeah, I was patient. Done. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, we do tend to do that. We'll make a change and then it doesn't sustain. We'll do a future episode about how to sustain change.
Yeah.
Jot that down there, Alison. How to sustain change is a whole other art. And we will talk about it. But in the meantime, set those goals.
Yeah.
I really feel like it could help you focus in what could potentially be another bit of an extraordinary school year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not sure if extraordinary or outrageous are the right words, but a little bit of an extraordinary, outrageous school year.
It's pretty close. Yeah. Yeah.
We don't know what's going to happen.
It's an unusual one.
I feel like I've learned to live with the unpredictability a little bit. Like it doesn't even faze me anymore. When people say like, what do you think is going to happen? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'm not even guessing.
I don't guess anymore. Cause I think for a while we were guessing and then you expected it to happen and then it didn't. So now I'm just like, you know what, whatever they say is what I'll do. Like, I don't even try to be like, I just don't even try that anymore because it's just too stressful for me.
This has been a giant lesson in just go with the flow. I think.
With the flow. Yeah.
So speaking of trying times, we want to share a feedback 5 with you that almost kind of relates to that. If you have feedback about this goal setting episode or any other episode of this podcast, please contact us by going to our website, howpreschoolteachersdoit.com, send us a contact form or send us a message through our podcast page on Facebook, also called How Preschool Teachers Do It podcast. Imagine that. Like our page and send us a message. And we may take your feedback and read it during the podcast. We have to have permission to do that. Be sure to give us permission, your name, where you're from, all that fun stuff, and we'll be happy to share. We can't share them all, so we are selecting some, and today we selected one that I want to share with everybody. The feedback that we're sharing today is from Sarah Foster.
Hi, Sarah.
And Sarah, hold on. Sarah said that she loved our episode having to do with the fact that children have experienced less play during this pandemic. And it reminded her of a new way of thinking about a school policy they have. So in her child's school, they're doing that whole handle with care thing. I don't know if you've all heard about that. It's a big trend. It's a good trend, I think. And what it is telling families that if something's happened at home, that they may not want to disclose to us, if they would just send their child in with a note or email us or message us and just say, handle with care to alert us, that the child might be emotional about something that happened at home, all they have to say is handle with care. And we'll know that that child needs some extra special consideration and attention that day because their behavior may be off due to something that happened at home. You know, people don't have to disclose their personal information to us. So just sending in a note that says handle with care would be wonderful. Then at least the teachers know what to do. And so at first, Sarah thought that this would be a really great policy for kids for where there's an illness in the family or foster care. I'm going to tell you it's good for any child who may have had anything at all happen outside of our classrooms. If the families just say handle with care, we know what to do. But Sarah was questioning what to do. And she said, considering the lack of play in children's lives today, that maybe actually instead of just, oh, we're going to pay really close attention to this child and spend a lot of time with this child, what we should be doing is helping to provide that child with really meaningful play so that through play and maybe some creativity, children could express these feelings that they're feeling to us. So the response to handle with care when we're given that message from a family could really just be, okay, we're going to give the child the opportunity to express themselves through dramatic play, through use of puppets, through art, through anything that kind of gives them a chance to express themselves so that they can share their feelings with us if they so choose.
Yeah, play is so important on so many different levels that, yeah, if a child is struggling, giving them extra playtime or even just sitting with them and playing with them could be so meaningful to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think that Sarah brought up a really great point. Handle with care, that whole thing is great, but then what do we do with it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it just a matter of, okay, you're going to sit next to me all day, or I'm going to call your name a lot? Or does that tell us do something really meaningful with this child to give them a chance to, or an outlet for their feelings?
Yeah.
Because for some reason, something that happened outside our setting, this child has strong feelings today.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that advice, Sarah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I hope that gives everybody food for thought about when you get that handle, or even using the handle with care message. Tell families if anything happens, send me a message or a note that says handle with care, and I will know how to respond to your child who may be overly emotional. It could be something even like, I don't know, the child had a fight with a sibling in the morning, and so their mood is a little off. Handle with care.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be huge, by the way.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll consider giving families that message. And then when you get that back, when families say handle with care, oh, this is about how we play with this child today.
It could be.
Yeah.
Could work.
Yeah. So that was great advice, Sarah. Thanks for being one of our preschool peeps.
Sarah. Yeah.
And we're going to give you all the advice that you should be setting goals for things like that too, for families communicating with you in a way that preserves their confidentiality. That's really what I love about the handle with care thing.
Yeah.
If there's something they don't want to tell me or don't feel the need to tell me, they're entitled to that confidentiality and privacy. They're entitled to their privacy. So, okay, just let me know that your child may be a little off.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, folks, we will catch you next time.
All right. Bye, peeps.
Bye. Go set good goals.